Hello all, and yes indeed I am back again for another review, and I have had a hell of a week with this one, I must say. Now, if there is ever an anime with a reputation, it is this one. I first heard about it ages ago, and I've never actually heard a single person say anything bad about it, so it took me quite a bit of time to get through, but finally, here we are. Legend of the Galactic Heroes is a whopping 110 episode long OVA series that was distributed over 9 years between 1988 and 1997 in direct-to-home video installment. It is based on a 10-volume novel series by Yoshiki Tanaka, was produced by Artland, Magic Bus and Kitty Films, written by Shimao Kawanaka and directed by Niburo Ishiguro. So here's where I usually give my brief synopsis, but there's a huge amount of important history leading up to where the series starts off. There are various prequel films to the show, so you may want to have a bang on those before you pick this one up, but I will try to give you the backstory you need. But this may take a while, so bear with us. Okay. On Earth, in the year 2039 AD, everything goes pear-shaped with nuclear war and the populace drops to less than 1 billion. After some pockets of peace, a focus on space technology leads to light-speed travel being invented in 2360, and emigration to other planets begins in 2402. With more and more planets being populated by humanity, various wars take place until the United Stars galaxy is established in the year 2801. And this year is then declared to be Space Era Year 1, and there is peace for a few hundred years, but due to space pirates, military expansion and political stagnation, democracy proves to be unable to reform society. In SE-288, a young space cadet named Rudolf von Goldenbaum proved his worth on the battlefield and made a name for himself, and later became a politician in SE-296. He makes several massive steps forward for society and eventually simultaneously becomes Prime Minister and President and basically the leader of all the everythings. And so humanity is now reformed under a dictatorship with no freedom of speech, but due to Rudolph's accomplishments he has near complete support from the masses. So in SE-310, Rudolph forms the Galactic Empire and dubs himself Emperor of the Galaxy. Rudolph now scraps the space era and marks this date as Imperial Year number 1. Then, in Imperial Year 9, everything goes all hits the Nazis and the inferior genes exclusion law is put in place, which puts a huge emphasis on, well, survival of the fittest. Those with disabilities and anyone who opposed this new law are unjustly quarantined or killed without trials, and the victims through this numbered around 4 billion in the end. After continuing his reign for several years, in Imperial Year 42, Rudolph dies at the age of 83, leaving his grandson on the throne. This leads to an opportunity for a lot of democratic rebellion, but little really comes of it due to the power of the dynasty he built. In Imperial Year 164, a man named Ael Heinesen builds a spaceship and escapes the Galactic Empire with about 400,000 others to an unknown planet. Together on this planet they build a fleet to explore the galaxy, and though Heinesen dies in the process and their numbers drop to around 160,000, they eventually settle on a distant planet in Imperial Year 218. So they name this planet after their fallen leader, reinstate the space era calendar, and the Free Planets Alliance is formed. And so in SE 640, or Imperial Year 331, we have our first conflict between the Empire and the Alliance. The Alliance win this skirmish, and the news spreads through the Empire, leading to many defecting and leaving for Heinesen. So, as the show starts, we are at war, and the Alliance hold this territory over here, the Empire hold this territory over here, and the only two connecting points are the Imperial-controlled Isilon corridor over here, and the neutral Fezzen corridor over here. It is New Year's Day, Imperial Year 487, Space Era 796, and 3597 AD. There is a lot behind the show, but what I've just said is basically all you need to know going in to fully understand what the history behind it is. And if you do want a better understanding of it than what I can give you, then before you start, I just recommend watching episode 56. Then episode 40, as those two episodes are history lesson documentaries basically. And so the story itself is narrated in the past tense, often quoting historians, which makes it feel really as though it is as it says. A legend of galactic heroes. It revolves around the ambition and glory of Imperial Admiral Reinhard von Lohengram and his goals of taking control of the galaxy and ushering out the lingering corruption of the Goldenbaum dynasty. Early on, we have a great deal of officials and higher-ups with outdated ideals in the Empire who come across very ignorant and allow Reinhardt's accomplishments to shine through by outdoing them. And within the Alliance, we follow Admiral Yang Wenli, who adores democracy and makes a name for himself through his accomplishments in battle, though doesn't really care for any fame he gains. The show is just one big battle of ideals. There is no set antagonist, and both sides show heroics and corruption, with neither being at all perfect. It is democracy versus autocracy, and uses politics as a heavy theme from start to finish. It shows very well how no matter how many great things a political system can achieve, there will never be a complete unity in the masses. And to quote Yang Wenli himself, there are few wars between good and evil, most are between one good and another good. Just about every important aspect of war is touched upon, whether it's the glory, the blood, the statistics, or well, the effect it has on society. It shows us exactly how horrible it can be, and even how economically essential it can be at times. We've even got things like terrorism, religious cults, assassinations, and coups d'etats, things that often show up when war is a factor. The sheer scale of its repercussions are so clear at all times, and man, does it do a good job of it. The only other shows I can really relate this to are some of the earlier Gundam series, like Zeta and other UC stuff specifically. Gundam will often have a similar deal where though the protagonist is on one side, there isn't necessarily a black and white split of who is the bad guy, who is the good guy. One thing this show did make painfully clear to me though is how geared towards selling model kits the Gundam shows are. In Gundam, the war is often swung in a certain way due to a single powerful frontline mobile suit. The focus on who has the biggest gun can make certain aspects of its conflict seem really superficial. None of the glory or the credit in Legend of the Galactic Heroes goes to the pilots of the ships and cruisers, and there's basically only 2 of these pilots who are even named by the end of the show. All of the important factors happen between fleet commanders, with tactical decisions, trickery, and sheer numbers being the deciding factor in any given combat. When you have a genius at either end of 2 massive fleets, it's never clear who's going to win until somebody surrenders. And the same's true of the war itself. With a protagonist figurehead on either side of the galaxy, it takes a great deal of time for it to be clear who's going to come out on top in the end. Now, the important aspects of battle happening between commanders means we don't get any intense action scenes and fighting. What we do get is dialogue. A lot of it. And this is the case for pretty much everything that happens in this show and is the main method of storytelling. It's not uncommon at all in this series for an episode to contain an 8-minute scene of a single conversation, and you really do need to be paying attention. The sheer volume and depth of the dialogue is monumental, and this could easily turn some people off. This is in no way a show you can just stick on in the background because you'll just end up getting lost. And this becomes clearest in a situation where, say, a character interaction from episode 24 is brought up in episode 79, and you'll need to remember that interaction to appreciate this one. The show will occasionally use very brief flashbacks in this situation though, which helps jog your memory, and I must say I really did appreciate them. There are a couple of things that felt strangely outdated at times. Ancient looking computers and the lack of mobile communications was very apparent, as I think I saw one of those World War II telephone backpack thingies at one point. This is mainly down to the novels being written in the 70s and 80s and the anime choosing not to change it, which I'm not sure if I can really get behind. You know what I found silly though? This is the year 3500, man. It's 1500 years in the future, and these guys are battling with axes and crossbows of all things. Really? Though I do guess it's understandable when their laser beam guns don't shoot through wooden tables. Right then, I just spent far longer than usual talking about the story, so let's spend some time on the characters and list off all of them for you. So there's Yulian, Kirhiais, Aneros, Oberstein, Mittermeier, Attenborough, Royenthal. Actually, no. No, I'm not going to do that because there's like 400 of them, with about a quarter of them being pretty important, and I'd say there are about 40 or so really important ones you'll see frequently. So I think I'll just talk about the 2 in more protagonistic roles. So at the heart of the Galactic Empire, Reinhardt von Lohengram. This character, man. Wow. He's incredible, I swear. So as we've covered, he is a man with the goal of taking over the galaxy for his own. He has such incredible ambition, but he doesn't come off as being at all arrogant about it. This isn't that he's modest. He knows of his own accomplishments and abilities, but doesn't use them to claim to be better than others. He has this strength and aura about him that just makes you want to put absolute faith in the guy. Unlike a lot of characters you see in anime being followed as a leader, his charisma is just so apparent that it's completely believable for his followers to react the way they do. He also looks fantastic. I mean, check him out, and the Imperial uniform for that matter. He's just so shaznable. He's also got magic hair. See, it grew from this to this in like 3 months. And then we have Yang Wenli, a man so different to Reinhardt in so many ways. Now, he is completely modest in just about every way. He achieves so many great things and has no real intention of taking credit for any of them, often just saying he got lucky about it. He is rewarded with a great deal of fame for the incredible things he does on the battlefield, and really hates it. He's got no such goals as galactic domination, and wants nothing more than to live in a democracy, spending all day in bed reading a book. He's just really likeable, and comes across as an all-round top-notch bloke, really. Yang just really looks like a normal person being thrown into a situation he's not all that comfortable with, and has none of those massive character-defining physical features Reinhardt has. But his actions are so precise, and he gains his popularity through his close to unrivaled tactical genius. These guys aside, I just felt the full cast was so strong. I didn't find any cliched archetypes there, and everyone had an important role to fill. There's this huge sense of mutual respect between characters on opposing sides, and everyone seemed to know the commanders' names at the other end of the battlefield. It made all the battles feel really honourable, and as a viewer it makes you respect their stature, I suppose. Certain characters also displayed incredible growth over the years of the show and added an impressive layer of depth to them. By the end I just felt so connected with the core group that I cared far more about their well-being than I think I should have done. If anyone looked like they were going to die at any point, I was just like, no, you can't kill them! No! So much goodness, man. Right, and to break things up a bit, I think I'm going to do something different and say something negative. How bizarre. Well, I thought of that anyway. Now, judging from the animation in places, I'm assuming I watched a remastered version of the show, so this is probably only really going to be an issue with that specific release. Now, this is a 110 episode anime, and I can't really expect the animation to be consistent throughout something that length, especially when it would have aired over 9 years. I'm fine with animation changing over the course of a series. I'm fine with remastering a show for a Blu-ray release unless it's completely butchered with CGI like Ghost in the Shell 2.0 was. And in an ideal world, the change would happen gradually over the length of the series. Abruptly between the episodes is acceptable. I don't really like the idea of it happening in the middle of an episode though. Now, what we had a few times in this show was the animation changing back and forth in the middle of a scene. Just look at this. New animation, old animation. New animation, old animation. New animation, old animation. Really? That's just so distracting, especially considering the conversation they're having is actually fairly important. This feels so sloppy to me. The animation is inconsistent like this throughout, and it's pretty weird seeing modern looking art rammed into the midst of a very 80s aesthetic. I can't really see how this is anything other than being down to a sketchy remaster though. Now don't get me wrong, at no point did I find the animation bad on its own, and the original style is very fitting, but yeah, the inconsistency on the release I watched was not great at all. Luckily though, the audio wasn't negatively affected by this remaster, and I shall now continue to spew compliments all over you. I think a deciding reason why I found the character so incredibly three-dimensional was the excellent performances from the voice cast. Every voice just felt so fitting, so perfect for the role of the character and the situation they were in. If Yang Wenli has been in battle for 2 days without sleep, you really can get a genuine feeling of fatigue from his voice, and I was really impressed by this. It's not just the acting though, as there was an array of appropriate voice effects used, so whether dialogue was happening with an echo in a large room or through a speaker, everything just sounded spot on. There was a wide array of subtle audio effects used, and the attention to detail was an incredibly welcome quality. And to top this all off, we have one of the most interesting soundtracks I've heard in years, as it's crammed full of well-known and fitting classical pieces from genius composers, as well as some rather nice original compositions as well. Dvorak, man. So good. Well, there you go then. That felt like less of a review and more of a shower of positivity, but that really is how I feel about it. I also seem to have completely ruined my plan of making my reviews less than 10 minutes long, so I hope you didn't get bored at Runaway. The important thing is though, do I recommend you watch this? And honestly, it depends. This show is 110 episodes long, and they aren't even short episodes either, generally about 5 minutes longer than an average anime TV time slot. I can imagine getting completely lost in its plot if I didn't watch it in lengthy chunks, so I wouldn't recommend it at all as a show you watch a couple of episodes of a day. If you do have the time to watch it in lengthy sittings, then you should have no issues, because though it is very dialogue heavy, it's seriously gripping for a show based in space politics, and it's superbly paced. I never once found myself getting bored. So if you can make time for it, I recommend it higher than I would just about any other show I've ever seen. And the biggest recommendation will be for fans of longer Gundam series. I love me some Gundam, and to me it just feels like a completely improved, all-around better version of a story tackling similar themes. I went in with really high expectations, and it seemed to me like a show with the potential to be something incredible, but I wasn't prepared for how good it actually was. It has war, believable romance, glory, despair, pretty much everything a show in its genre needs to be great, and it's instantly one of my favourites of all time. With so little wrong with it, the show gets a well-deserved 96%. And I don't think I'll be rating anything that highly again for a very long time. The only complaint I do have though is that I spent all week hooked on it and now I've completely neglected the season. So now I've got to catch up on 3 weeks worth of Vivid Red, Love Live, and Cuticle Detective Inaba. I feel so unclean. See you next week. Reinhardt von Lohengram is shaznable. This car also is shaznable. This hat too is shaznable. This Granny Smith apple, however, is not shaznable. Conversely, this tomato is shaznable. These sunglasses are Buginerific. You don't have a helmet. My helmet is Shaznable. Deal with it.